Hello. I am on my way to pick up my son to go to the dentist. It's lunchtime. I took the rest of the day off, which is nice because it's a nice sunny day and I can get some yard work done. It won't be dark when I get home. That'll be nice. I wanted to talk briefly about a couple things. 2 or 3 things. One is responding to critics. Should you respond to people who are critical of you and make professional diagnosis without having the education to do so? I see a lot of videos. I get weird things in my feed sometimes, and I'll click on them just out of curiosity. And once you click on something once, then you start seeing a whole bunch of them, which is not always necessary, but whatever. But I've watched a few of these folks talk about narcissism, because narcissism has seemingly become very popular in our culture and society as people have gotten away from God and seeing humility and meekness as a virtue. There's a tendency to have the opposite opinion, and that creates a lot of problems, and narcissism is one of them. But I've noticed that watching some of these narcissist videos of how to recognize and how to treat or cope with a narcissist, they're not always well done. I've had people, I've only had one person actually. I've had one person call me a narcissist for doing these videos. It's a family member that's particularly critical of me, and this person has no education or background or understanding of what a real narcissist is, and it's really kind of petty for me to even waste my time addressing it, except that I don't think she's the only one that's doing that. I think there's quite a few people in our society that are going around calling people narcissists that aren't really narcissists. There are a lot of narcissists. I agree with that, but I think when you start abusing the meaning of words, they lose their meaning. They lose their power. They lose their potency. And so I think it's dangerous to go around calling people narcissists when they're not narcissists. In my own defense, I have several reasons to verify that I'm not a narcissist. One is I constantly admit that I'm wrong and I make mistakes, and I go to confession all the time, and I'm embarrassed and ashamed of myself. And I have been since I was a kid, as part of my life experience growing up, being molested when I was little. And I grew up old school. I got lots of spankings, and I got in lots of trouble. So I'm very familiar with feeling ashamed of myself and acknowledging that I've done a lot of things wrong and suffering the consequences for that, and the pain of trying to deal with difficult people, especially working with violent psychotics as a nursing assistant. And that brings me to my second point, in that, having gone through the military and taken all the psychological evaluations that allowed me to get a secret and top secret clearance, you wouldn't want a narcissist doing that job, because he's going to go around bragging about stuff that he shouldn't, more than likely. On top of that, I've gone to therapy, and because I was insecure about my mental status, having been molested as a kid, and having sleep paralysis attacks as a kid growing up, and then panic attacks in my early 20s and 30s, and and ever since, actually, off and on. I was insecure about my mental status, and I was concerned that perhaps I had some sort of an issue, because I have had ancestors that had bipolar disease and schizophrenia and various things like that. Not very many, but we've had a few. We've had a lot of geniuses and gifted people in our family too. But all the testing, and I saw multiple therapists over the years, none of them suggested that I was narcissistic. In fact, the last one that I went to see for counseling for my child molestation issues, and he helped me and give me advice on writing my book about it. He went out of his way to point out how humble I was and how he respected that, and I didn't feel comfortable with that either. So yeah, all this is not here to justify me not being a narcissist, because I already know that. But the point I'm trying to make is that you have to be very careful about putting people in categories and boxes and calling them names that are not accurate. And we see a lot of that in our society today with politics as an effort to dehumanize different people and assign them to groups and unattractive ideas that this is the same sort of thing that the Nazis did with the Jews, and has been done repeatedly throughout history, even in the Civil War in the United States. With slavery and bigotry and all that. We see that on multiple levels. This whole thing of putting people in boxes by their race, their religion, their political affiliations, all these things are designed to cause divisions and conflict. And they're usually wrong, or at least not completely accurate. Our culture really needs to shift from this habit of trying to divide people into boxes back to what it was supposed to be, which is a melting pot. And remember that Orthodox Christian ideas and principles are what created Western civilization. And that boils down to putting God first and living with honor and integrity. If you don't have honor and integrity, you don't have much. You don't have anything. You're very poor. And you have to develop your virtues, because that's your spiritual treasure for eternity. And you have to humble yourself and correct your mistakes, because if you don't do that, you can't develop any virtues. If you focus on honor and integrity, no matter what your culture, religious beliefs, or background, you create unity, because you right wrongs and you focus on yourself and correcting your own mistakes, which prevents things from snowballing out of control in conflict situations. And I think that's really the point that I wanted to hammer home on this subject. There were some other things that were on my mind that I could talk about, but I think that's sometimes if you talk too much and you change the subject, you can kind of water it down and you lose your impact. So I think I'll just leave it there for this little talk. But I've seen this in our political system a lot, and our country's really jacked up right now. It's not the first time in history this has happened. It's happened multiple times, but I'm really concerned about the undermining of our Constitution and our culture and our country, and the efforts that are obviously being made to destroy it from within by creating conflict and divisions. And we really need to stop doing that to each other. And I'm not saying that you don't stand up for what's right, you don't correct wrongs, but there's the Orthodox Christian way of doing it, which is in a spirit of gentleness and with humility and meekness, that doesn't drive the person away or make them want to rebel against you and kill you. And that doesn't mean they won't still do that, because some people have that mindset. They're just so corrupted and absorbed by hatred. But it does mean that if you do it that way, you're less likely to have those consequences and results, and you're more likely to achieve your ultimate goal. And once again, I repeat myself, but it really boils down to focusing on your own honor and integrity while you're trying to help other people get on board and make the world a better place. So that's my little soapbox for today. I'm no better than anybody else. I struggle with the same things you all struggle with. We are all in the same boat. Just pray for each other. Ask God's mercy and peace on earth and goodwill towards men. And that's the message of this time of year anyway. So God bless. Pray for me, a sinner. Over and out.